Belinda and Harper Audio Australia present this unabridged recording of Until the Red Leaves Fall, written by Alli Parker and read by Kimie Tsukakoshi. To Kim. I'm not sure I'd have been brave enough to tell this story if I hadn't seen you be so beautifully brave yourself. And to anyone who has ever felt like they're not enough, that's never true. It's just easier for other people to keep you small. Don't let them. I've been on the stage all my life, and if you were to ask me which role has been the hardest, why, I'd have to say myself. Virginia Van Belle, August 1946. Please be advised that this story contains a description of sexual assault. Chapter 1. February 1957. A pleasure, Mrs. Darling. I'd imagine that's Darling by name, Darling by nature. A boring joke from a boring man, but still, Emmy Darling forced a chuckle as though this was the first time she'd heard it. She swung the front door wide, raising a conspiratorial eyebrow, then stepped out of his way. You think my husband would expect any less? Please, make yourself at home. I believe you have friends in the front room. A welcoming roar greeted him, the stage manager at the Napier Theatre, as he crossed the hall and stepped into the lounge. Temporarily relieved of playing hostess, Emmy gave a small sigh, relishing the brief respite. The house was filled with merriment and conversation, hosting the kind of gathering that set the world to rights over a glass of whiskey and a cigarette. Emmy was there to make sure the guests ran out of neither. She settled her deep brown curls over her shoulders, crisped to the touch courtesy of half a can of hairspray. Curls never held in her hair otherwise, no matter how hard she tried, but tonight they looked immaculate. It was almost a waste that the only people who would see them were the hungry and alcohol-blurred men of the Melbourne theatre scene. Directors, playwrights and producers her husband invited to these regular soirees at their skinny terraced house. Sebastian had fancied himself as Jay Gatsby at the beginning of his playwriting career, although their house was nothing like the West Egg mansion in Fitzgerald's novel. It was the worst house on a good street. The brick foundations strong, but the interior collapsing and water damaged. Sebastian had, with the help of a carpenter from the theatre he was working at, addressed the worst of it, replacing the gutters and the stairs, but the lower priority fixes lay untouched. Emmy hid rotting wooden panels on the upstairs landing under a low bookshelf, repainted walls to hide the watermarks. All short-term solutions until they had more money and Sebastian had time. She couldn't hide in the hallway for long. She swept into the dining room, poised and smiling, promising to write out her recipe for lemon meringue pie for a man's wife, even though she'd only taken it from the Women's Weekly, complimenting someone else on his shirt, winding her way through the smoke haze to where her husband stood. Sebastian's ash-blonde hair was slicked back with Brill cream, and he wore a tan pair of suspenders clipped onto dark brown trousers, his white cotton shirt rolled up at the sleeves. These soirees were often the highlight of his month, the gathering of hearts and minds in his front rooms. Emmy didn't enjoy them quite as much. The overabundance of men sprawled through her house with no other women for company. She often found herself dodging suggestive remarks made out of earshot of her husband with a smile and polite rebuff, before escaping upstairs to the bedroom as the night simmered into sunrise. The next morning, while Sebastian slept off the after effects of whatever he'd been drinking, Emmy was the one who put the house back in order. Still, it seemed a small price to pay for the way these evenings perked her husband up. As though he wasn't in a crowded room full of friends and colleagues, as though he wasn't mid-conversation with the director of his latest play and another man who could be of any importance, Sebastian looked over to her. A smile bloomed across his face, cheeks flushed, and he gestured for her to join them. I'm telling you, Joseph Harrington said, jabbing his finger in the air as Emmy arrived. We changed that line in scene.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?